everybody. Welcome to the Canadian Country Music Podcast. And please help me welcome the man of the hour, Mr. Al Rowe. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, Al.
Hey, Tim, thanks for having me.
Oh, man. So me and you go back quite a while back when I was promoting when I was a teenager. You had come across the country in a band called Aberdeen. You guys had done your high school music tour, and it was kind of like a free tour that you guys had put on. And then I had seen and heard of you guys from that and kind of picked you guys up on the tour on the way back. And you guys did some amazing things in that amount of time. And then I kind of followed you as you continued your career and you started a podcast. So thank you so much for coming on to spend a little bit of your time. I know you're a very, very busy guy when it comes to all this kind of stuff. So thank you so much. For the people who are listening today that have no idea who Al Rowe is, can you give them a brief little history on your music, where you came from, when you first decided that music was going to be your niche, and we'll go on from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just again, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure to be here, and I was happy to make the time to come on. This is really cool to be chatting with you now, on a podcast after all these years. It's
Right?
Crazy how the connections you make when you're, 20, or I was at the time. I'm not sure how many years difference there are between us, if any. But when I'm 30, almost 33 now. When I was 20,
I'm turning 32, so I would have been in my 18, 19-year-old age then. Well, yeah.
So close, right? So, it's just amazing. You don't think of it then, but the connections that you make at any point in your life, 10 plus years later, it's like, here we are again. So yeah, for those who don't know what I do, I'm a singer-songwriter, guitarist, and record producer. I live in Toronto, Ontario. And I make the bulk of my living, or at least I did before the pandemic, playing in a supporting role for artists. So that would typically be as a guitarist or backup vocalist, or a keyboardist. Sort of, I could dabble in a few different instruments if that's what's needed. And on the side of that, producing records with my good buddies in the Agenda. And what we do is basically provide a band and a producer and a mixer and a recording studio and whatever anybody might need to make a recording, if that's a single or a record or anything like that. The four of us sort of pool our skills together and provide that in sort of one package. So those are the two main focuses of my career. And then sort of somewhere in there is me singing and writing my own songs and recording those as well.
Whenever you seem to have some time, eh?
Yeah. So in terms of my background, I mean, like you said, I sort of started just playing in bands. Had a band called Aberdeen for a number of years. We did some touring. We learned a lot of things the hard way. Made a couple of records, and it was a really great band and some of the best times of my life. I'm very fortunate to just I feel like I've always got something sort of amazing / exciting going on. But looking back on that, it was really a unique experience and a lot of great memories there. And then of course now, getting to play with artists like, Amanda Marshall, Beverly Mahood, David James, who we ran into on the road with David, Leah Daniels, Vanessa Carter, Chris Barclay. I'm sure I'm forgetting people. The list goes on.
Right.
And just having so many great experiences on stage in that role has been amazing too. So I sort of started out in the band scene. I ended up going to Humber College, which is a music post-secondary school in Toronto. I have a bachelor's degree of music that I got there. And then sort of coming out of school, did some pretty heavy touring with Aberdeen, and then eventually kind of just transitioned into being like a bar musician, just trying to make a living, because as some of you may or may not know, like original music is not a great earner in terms of cash unless you're at the top.
Yeah.
But when you're a struggling rock band, just trying to make your way, it's pretty much zero income. So and we can get into this later, but I eventually did transition away from that and just sort of started trying to work, and over the years, actually just sort of reconnected with some of the guys that I'd known from Humber College, and that eventually became the agenda. And just I've had a great run of, I don't know, man, like 7+ years of just playing, hundreds of shows with different artists, traveling, a lot of which are in the country scene, and making records. So it's been great, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. So
nor do I want you to. So you actually, like, as I know you anyways, you've always been a vocalist. And when I was promoting shows, I don't know if you ever noticed through the shows that I did, because I was a vocalist, I always listened for the vocals, and I always listened for somebody that had a unique sound to their vocals, somebody that was completely out of the range that you couldn't really picture in another group. That's why I picked you, and that's why I would always do like Take Me to the Pilot and Crisis Jane and those kind of guys. They had that unique set of voice. What made you was it the fact that the country musicians kind of sought you out, or were you kind of drawn towards the country aspect? Because when me and you first met, I would have never expected us to be having a country music conversation.
Yeah. Well, there was a certain, I don't know if pragmatic's the right word, but it's probably not. I try to use big words and then I fall flat. But
that's all right, because if you use big words, I don't know what they mean. So you sound a lot smarter than I do.
it was more like it was more of a slow, smooth transition. Playing in the bars, once I wasn't doing original pop punk rock music anymore, playing in the bars, I wanted to be able to play a lot of the acoustic driven music that I'd grown up listening to. So we're talking, and anybody who knows me is going to chuckle when they hear me say this, but we're talking bands like Matchbox 20, Bare Naked Ladies, Third Eye Blind, the list goes on, kind of like a 90s, 2000s Goo Goo Dolls, bands like
Big
that.
Shiny Tunes.
Exactly. Yeah, the more sort of, less heavy metal, heavy rock side of the music that was going on at that time. Chili Peppers, Incubus. I don't know. I'll keep thinking of more, but wanted to sort of dive into that genre a bit more because I'd listened to so much of it growing up, and I figured that a lot of people would really like it because I was playing college bars. Like we would drive out to like Molly Bloom's in London. I think it's on Richmond Street in London, Ontario, which is from Toronto. Scarborough is where I was living at the time, almost a 3-hour drive in favorable traffic and weather and all the rest of that. We'd be doing that on a weekly basis.
Oh, wow.
And playing, bars in Guelph and stuff like that, where the people there were like 3-4 years younger than me on average, let's say, because it was college university times and I was sort of just out of college myself. I figured I really like this music. I imagine a lot of people at these bars are going to be like, "Oh, sweet! I haven't heard this song since I was in grade 7. This is awesome!" And get really fired up.
Back to
Wonderwall by Oasis. Yeah. Still much overplayed stuff like that. But like, So people would really enjoy that music, and from there, it just kind of the country thing started to just sweep the nation. Like all of a sudden, my brother, who's got his finger on the pulse of whatever's happening, in music and stuff like that. He was all of a sudden going to country bars and going to festivals and showing me bands like Zac Brown Band, Jason Aldean. When I remember actually the very first country song that I really liked was a song called "She's Country" by Jason Aldean. I'm sure you know. I don't know if it was first or second record, but just realizing how unbelievably sick the guitar playing was.
And pickup truck, daddy sweet money gonna jack it up. Yeah, that's such a solid tune.
Yeah, and the guitar break in the middle and stuff, just being like, holy crap, this is good. And so, that kind of stuff, I started listening to more of country music, and then some of the guys I was playing with at the time, who I still play with now, Rich DeSilva, Will Hebbs, are like, this country's like this this Zach Brown album is dope, or like this whatever, like we should, maybe do some of these songs. I think people would really like them. So we kind of started including them in some of the bar sets we were playing.
Okay, yeah.
And then I guess it would have been Vanessa that really sort of brought us into that genre. And I think the story goes that Rich Da Silva, drummer for the Agenda, and Will Hebbs, guitarist for the Agenda, subbed into Vanessa Marie Carter's band. Vanessa's a country artist from Oakville, Ontario, that now lives in Nashville.
Shout out Vanessa.
How to deal with Warner, and is still releasing music now. They subbed into her band at the time, and I believe she was pretty new on the scene, and they basically said, hey, like if you ever need some other guys, like we know a couple other guys that'd be really good fit for this. Speaking of me and our friend Josh Cohen, who we were playing with a lot at the time, who's a great bass player, right now lives in Madison, Wisconsin. And so, we started rehearsing with her, and then that just sort of became, she booked a bunch of gigs at the Corral in Kitchener, and the one in the Stampede something or other in Stampede Ranch in Guelph. If you're familiar with those giant country bars.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, I heard they may have closed, or one of them did, but she booked a slew of gigs there. And to me, I was just like, great, more shows, like, let's go. The music was good. It had guitars in it. There was lots of good vocal parts. Like, I was down to play all this stuff. And we all think she's a great artist, and we wanted to support her and see where that went. So that was sort of how the country thing happened. So wasn't like I woke up one day and I was like, I want to be in the country scene. It just sort of went that way, and I'm very happy that it did. I think it's a great community and a great genre, and and then from there, just building connections. People would see us playing as a band for someone like Vanessa or somebody else like Leah, and they would say, hey, like, can I just hire all you guys? It's gonna be way easier than picking, individual people that I don't know. You guys all know each other. You know how to work all together. You know how to rehearse a song and a set and everything. It's like, great. So, so that's kind of how we ended up there.
That's awesome. Now, do you also see like your solo career also kind of moving towards the country music because of that aspect?
That's a good question. I don't really ever foresee myself being a country artist, just because I don't know. I don't have that low drawl kind of voice, like I can't get down there, it doesn't really happen for me. So like,
but at the
I've got this kind of weird.
Ben Skill didn't do it. Dan and Shay ain't doing it. Like,
that's true. That's true. I think there's definitely always going to be a part of my music that is strongly influenced by country, because I've played almost nothing but country for the last, I don't know, half a decade to a decade, right? In terms of the gigs I've been doing. So, it's going to bleed in there. And I've heard a lot of people say like, oh, I really hear like the song sounds real country to me, or your voice sounds really country to me. And it's like, well, I'm not really trying to do anything. It's just, this is what I've been doing for so long that I think it just sort of manifests in you a little bit. So I would love it for people to feel like my music fits in that genre, because I think it's a great genre, and I love the country music fans. So if my music is embraced by people like yourself and other country music lovers, then I'm all for that, and I would love that. But I don't know how you classify it either. It's just my whole thing is like it's music with guitars and drums, and I'm singing over it.
That's your story on a sixth string, and that's it.
I guess so. Yeah.
All right. So Humber College, you graduated with your music degree. You made it in on vocals. You actually tried on vocals and guitar. But anybody who's ever heard you on vocals would obviously realize that you should be in this program for it. You almost dropped out of the program.
Yeah. About halfway through year 2, I was thinking about throwing in the towel. Yeah. It's hard to remember exactly why that was, but I do remember having that feeling, and maybe it was more a feeling of just being burnt out. The program was pretty grueling. I was commuting an hour and a half each way to get to school every day as well.
Yeah.
Because the campus is in Etobicoke, which is in the west end of Toronto, and I was living at my parents' house, almost in Pickering, which is kind of the far east end of the city. And we have this thing called the GO train here that sort of runs along the lakeshore and takes you from one end of the city to the other. The problem is just it's a big city, man. It takes a while to get from one side to the next, and there's transfers and whatever else. So I think the commute was difficult, and I also think that the program was just really, really tough. It was a gauntlet. I was around people who were way, way better than me at music all the time, and I felt like I really had to step up to what they had going on.
Mm-hmm.
And the focus of the program was jazz at the time, which is not a genre that I really knew anything about, to be frank. I just figured that this program was a music program that wasn't classical, so it'd be the closest thing to what I was looking for. And it gave a degree, which is something that I wanted to get.
Were those your two options for Humber? Was it jazz or classical? Was there any other degrees that you could have went through, or?
No, they only had a jazz program as far as I know, and still do. Okay. But I know, places like U of T have U of T jazz, but I think they'll also have a classical program. A lot of universities do. I wouldn't have qualified for any of those based on my skill set. I did qualify, or I did get accepted at Western for like a business degree, which was something I was also considering, just in case I didn't get accepted to the music programs. Mm-hmm. I wanted to. I've always had an interest in finance and stuff like that, so I thought, that'd be an all right direction to go in as well if the music schools won't take me.
Well, also if you're trying to be successful in the music, a little bit of help in the finance department is always needed. So you went into the jazz program, and then from that you basically kind of started in your fourth year. You got to record your own project.
Yeah. So third year and fourth year really actually were huge for me. I think, second year was such a grind that I thought I might quit. I stuck it out, and third year and fourth year were really great because that was when I felt like I could sort of do my own thing. It became encouraged again to like make some original music, or like, I was in a soul group at the school called the Blue Jackets. That was you'd have ensemble, right, where you were in, and they have bands of different styles and whatever. And that was the one that I got chosen to do. And it was sweet because I could finally, like, it wasn't jazz anymore. I wasn't expected to like sing softly and nicely. It was like, no, like, let it rip. I was like, okay, I can do that. Nice. And so that kind of stuff. And then the recording in fourth year was huge. I got a job at the studio to help pay my rent. That they have a amazing recording studio at Humber, and they needed somebody to sit at the desk and sign people in and out of various rooms. And that was my job for fourth year. And basically the way that worked was I was just kind of sitting around doing nothing for most of the time. And the computer at the desk, at the reception desk, had Pro Tools installed on it. Pro Tools is a music recording software and production software that I use every day now for the work I do. And so I basically I was like, well, I'm really interested in recording. And as you said, Tim, I did have the opportunity to record my own projects. So it's like, I'm going to edit it all myself. I'm going to do the best to mix it all myself. I'm going to do as much of it as I can by myself. I'm just going to learn how to use this software. I've got X amount of hours all the time while I'm working at this studio desk that nobody's in here. I'm just going to plug my headphones in and just go nuts and watch YouTube videos and figure this stuff out. So that's what I did. And yeah, the group was Aberdeen. That was my band at the time. We'd been a band together since the middle of high school. And I said, well, guys, like, I've got 4 hours of studio time. Like, yeah, come on down. Let's make some tracks. And then my friend Eddie, who was also in the program, and now Eddie Ryder, now plays for Shawn Mendes, was in Aberdeen with me at the time. And he was in Humber College with me at the time. We were the same year. That's how we met. And he had 4 hours as well for his recording project. So he said, all right, can we like can we like combine our hours and
Yeah.
like make a 6-song EP instead of making, 3 songs each? Like, why don't we just, combine it? And they let us do that, which was amazing. And so, yeah, we brought the band in and did 6 tracks. And yeah, like I said, I edited it all. I just tried to do as much as I possibly could by myself. And that was a lot of how I learned how to, record and use Pro Tools and stuff like that.
That's impressive. How long would you say that it would have taken you, like just trying to look through all the YouTube stuff to actually start getting an idea of how Pro Tools work? Because I've looked at Pro Tools before, and it might as well be written in Sanskrit for all I can tell.
Well, my friend Eddie, who I just mentioned, he was ahead of me by a couple of years, maybe even more. He had Pro Tools, I think, on his computer at home, and he'd been using it to record and produce. He's very interested in doing all that stuff. So fortunately for me, I had a phone a friend line anytime I got stuck. I literally, like, the most basic questions about the software, and anybody out there who's used it knows it's like, well, when I push play, no sound is coming out. Why?
Yeah.
And I phone him and he'd be like, well, you got to set your playback engine, you got to set this and that, and just troubleshooting and just figuring all it. There's a huge barrier to entry if you're trying to learn this software. So fortunately, I had Eddie to mentor me, and yeah, I mean, but just hours and hours. I couldn't tell you. I would do entire edits of a track and then realize that I didn't have my drum group turned on. Therefore, I have to do it all again because now the drums are all out of sync with each other. Or I would do, just like stuff like that, like a bunch of times, or like you learn the Control S lesson pretty quick as well. If you're not saving every minute or so, it's like, oh, I just did an hour of guitar playlisting. It's like, oh, my computer crashed. Now I got to do it all again. So there was endless amounts of just me like doing things and then realizing I did this completely wrong, or I could do this better. So I'd go over it again. I'd edit through one song and then be like, okay, but actually I could do this, and then I would go too far. Now this sounds too mechanical. This doesn't have any life left in it. Okay, I should go back and actually undo some of the stuff. And it was just a huge sandbox of me just figuring stuff out and watching videos. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you how many hours I put into that record. Probably well over 100. Like it was insane, but it was totally worth it.
Absolutely. What did you get graded on your performance with your EP?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I don't remember how I did on it. I didn't do badly because I would remember that. I'm sure I got like a middle of the road, like pretty good grade on it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So with Aberdeen, I didn't realize this guy. You actually had a connection with Headley's bass player Tommy Mack. With that, you guys went out and recorded some songs in the studio, correct?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Was that an organic meet? How did you guys run into each other, or how did you guys reach out to him, or?
Yeah. Well, my friend Adam Dugas, he's a bass player. Lives in Norfolk County, I want to say is the name of his town is called Boston, Ontario, which is kind of cool. Nice. I might have my geography slightly wrong, but with the counties and all that. But west of the city. So he and I met in, I don't know, when I was in first year college, somewhere around that. Our drummer at the time, a good friend of mine named John, was taking a music program at Seneca called the Independent Music Program. He met Adam there. He said, we got to get this guy in the band. This guy's like the most driven person I've ever seen in my life. Like he's obsessed with music. Like he just does this every day. This guy never stops. And I was like, okay, great. Let's meet him. We met. Him and I became very close friends. And I still, to this day, I don't know that I've met somebody who quite has that, the get up and go that Adam does. And so he would always be on the lookout for new opportunities, new connections. How can I get a hold of this person or that person? Like there's got to be a way where I'm just going to make it happen. And which has been something that I've struggled with my entire life. I don't have that, whatever that spark is inside that says like, you got to network better. You got to go and make opportunities happen. I don't know what it is about me, but I've always struggled there. I want to be the guy that sort of sits in my basement and like makes songs and just leave me alone, you know.
but, I hope you guys like me. But
so
like,
there was a really,
you stay over there, I'll stay over here.
But Adam and I had a really good sort of dynamic whereby he would be pushing me to like, no, we gotta go out and hand out flyers in the freezing cold because there's going to be a big lineup to the Faber Drive concert tonight down at Nathan Phillips Square. I remember we stood outside all night and handed out flyers to people to be like, hey, check out our band. I would never have done that in my life. He was like, he would freeze his face off to go out and like get 5 more people to like us on Facebook. You know what I mean? So that kind of stuff is jam. And I was fully there for it. It's just that I wouldn't have come up with it myself. So I'm very thankful that we had that experience.
I'm very happy that you had somebody to do that with as well.
Yeah. And so it was no surprise. It was Adam's idea to reach out to Tommy, who's the bass player for a band called Headley, who had some pretty big hits back probably 15 years ago. And they were kind of at the top of the Canadian rock charts at the time. I don't know how he got wind that Tommy was looking for bands, but he figured it out somehow and messaged him and said, hey, look, we got this band. Would you be interested in working with us? And, we had done that to countless other people, messaged them cold and said, hey, we got a band. What do you think? And Tommy was the one person who said, hey, yeah, these songs sound pretty good. Like, let's chat. Right. That's and we're like, oh, okay, sweet. Great. So, so we ended up talking with him, passing some demos back and forth. And he invited us to come out to Vancouver and make a record, which he would, produce and try to sort of help us get our feet under us and get started as a band. And it was a heck of an experience. I'll certainly never forget most of it. Some of it, the Coronas have taken away from me, but the beer, I mean, not the virus.
Yeah.
But so we drank a lot of those out there. And so it was a very, very, really, really intense experience. We had an engineer named Dean Marr, who was an extremely talented recording engineer and mixing engineer, who was actually recording and mixing the whole project. And Tommy would sort of be there as the eyes in the sky, as it were, just making sure that the big picture was being taken care of, and that he would stand behind the product. Otherwise we would, re-record parts, or he would play something in on guitar if he felt he needed to, or making sure the vocals were tight. The singing, that the amount of vocal takes I had to do was a lot, and so, and then furthermore, because I had such a bug for Pro Tools and recording, I would try to like look over Dean's shoulder and like see what he was doing, or like when he's dialing in, he got exceptionally good guitar tones. That was one of the things that really stood out. I mean, he's great at everything he did, but the guitar tones were like so good for what we were trying to do. And just watching him sort of try to dial them in and figure it out. And of course there's no system, so you never really learn anything that you can apply again and again. But I would just, I picked up, I think, a lot of little techniques and different sort of workflows from just trying to watch what they were doing. So I felt that was a big learning experience. It was extraordinarily expensive also. So, I will caution people that if a big producer wants to work with you, it ain't going to be free. So we borrowed a lot of money to make that happen.
A little bit about that, because I really want people to actually like 100% understand like the cost that goes into this kind of stuff. So I don't know if you want to give the exact amount or whatever, but can you give like a ballpark figure of how much it would have cost for 6 songs to be done with Headley's Tommy Mac at that time?
It's in the tens of thousands. It's not less than 20 grand.
And how old are you?
I'll say that. I was 21, maybe 22 at the time. Okay. Yeah.
Now, when you get this contact with them, were you guys did you guys already have money saved away? Were you guys contemplating
No,
like
oh
grant
no.
writing?
We did do some grant stuff. Didn't get approved for it. But that's okay. That's okay. I
Mhm.
mean, we're in college. It's like I've got a student line of credit. I'll just dip into that. You know,
Fair enough. Fair enough. I didn't think about that
once in
one
a lifetime
actually.
opportunity. Like,
Yeah, fair
well,
enough.
it's not the most responsible thing to do if you're thinking about money, but we were not thinking about money. We were thinking about
The
making a great
opportunity.
record
Yeah.
and, and the opportunity, right? So that's what you do. And I'm sure a lot of artists can relate to that.
Mhm.
I wouldn't wholeheartedly recommend dipping into credit
No.
that deeply to make a record. I would probably caution people against doing that. But people are going to do what they're going to do because you see an opportunity in front of you and you feel like you don't have a choice.
Mhm.
So, but the record turned out amazing. It sounds really good even now. And
Yeah, it
like,
still
you know,
competes with today's
the,
music. That's amazing that
yeah,
you can
the
literally
songs
throw it
aren't
on.
the
Yeah,
songs are not what
they're
I'm
not
like
dated.
trying to do now, but at the time they were. And like, so they delivered. I'm not trying to say they didn't deliver, but it's like it's a lot of money, man.
Yeah.
So you
Did you
gotta
get a
really
did you get any
be aware of
promotional
that.
stuff with that as well, or
Not really. We did get a meeting at Warner, which didn't go anywhere. Um, and we sort of
how is
had we
that
had
being a
Tommy's.
20-year-old sitting in a room with Warner? Or were you even in a room? Was it over a phone or
Oh yeah, we were in a room. I'm sure we were. I'm not going to speak for everybody else, but I'm sure I was an idiot in there. Like I, not that I was like would have been rude or anything, but it's just when you're like it's like you're a kid in a candy store, right? You're
right?
just so excited to even be in the room, and people in there probably seen 10 other bands like us in the same day. They don't, they're not. It's lost. It's not. It's lost on them how cool this is for us. Um, and I mean, we didn't know what we were doing at the time, so I imagine that's why we didn't get signed. Or maybe it was, you never know how close things are.
Mhm.
You just never know. It could have been like, well, I heard the phrase a lot from labels and managing people. They're like, man, if this was 5 or 10 years ago, you guys would be signed. It's just too late for this type of music. It's
They're
not
starting to
happening right
yeah,
now.
they're
It's like,
feeling like it's phasing out.
what are you gonna do, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you make the music you want to make. You can't
Mhm.
chase the next trend. I mean, you can try, but I don't think it works. So,
No, I
you
I
never know
feel
how
like
close we
if you're
really
chasing
were.
trends, by the time you get there, it's already a new trend anyways, right? So,
Yeah, I don't think it really works. But
yeah.
yeah, so that's sort of as far as it got. We ended up with a great record, um, and that was sort of the most that Tommy could give to us at that time. I mean, he was also like doing national tours
Mhm.
with Headley. So it wasn't like he was around to manage a band. So it was, that was sort of as much as he could do for us. And like I said, the record sounds killer, and it was an amazing learning experience. Unfortunately, it didn't lead to a record deal and all the stuff that we dreamed that it would. But that was something that we also knew was a possibility going in. So,
Now,
so
coming
that's how it worked out.
coming out of that, do you feel a lot more confident going into a studio now, having worked with some of the top at the time people in the game? Do you feel like you've got a little bit more like pep in your step being able to walk into a studio, or
Dude, I still get chills. Like I was in Revolution recording studios the other day doing a COVID friendly video shoot
Mhm.
with an artist named Carly June, and just like I can't believe I'm in here. I was talking to an engineer, a month ago. I was like, man, like every time I come, and I was talking to them about Metalwork Studios, which is another great studio here. It's just like every time I come into that studio, I'm just like, I can't believe I'm even in there. Like it's so cool. And that engineer
Mhm.
who's in there all the time was just like, dude, me too. This never gets old,
Really?
And
Eh?
I was like,
That's
that's so
awesome.
cool.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So I definitely haven't lost that sense of just like giddiness to be in the studio. It's such a to be in a real great studio like that is such a privilege. So in terms of confidence, I mean, it depends on what I'm doing. I hopefully I'm, at this point qualified to be playing the music I'm playing. I mean, if you get me in there to make a bluegrass record, I'm going to be pretty darn nervous as a guitar player because I'm not a bluegrass player,
Yeah,
right?
like
But if I'm
100%.
producing a pop country track and I need to play acoustic guitar on it or sing backup vocals or mix it or like, I'm going to have a certain amount of confidence because I've have a many years experience doing that now. But I'm also going to have a certain amount of nervousness because I want the end result. I don't want to call it a product, but the end result I want the artist to be excited about it.
Yeah.
I want them to be blown away by what we've accomplished as a team with them. And so I'm nervous to send mixes off because it's like, what if they don't like it? What if I'm not hearing right today and I just did a bunch of stuff I'm going to regret? And like, I definitely have that nervousness, combined with like, I think this sounds great. I'm really proud of the work we did. So here it goes. So it's a weird kind of dichotomy all at the same time. But that's sort of how I would describe the feeling. Yeah.
And in terms of being like an artist that has used backing bands in the process as well, to hear your music for the first time, like for me, whenever I play a guitar, I have my 6 string sitting beside me and I'll write the song and I always have it acoustic. In my head, I have the idea what the live stuff has, but I don't have the concept of being able to play the drums or the bass or have the electric. I can't shred like the likes of Keith Urban or anybody like that. So when you actually get up on stage or when you're actually practicing with them and the song comes to life, like it is a 100% like lifetime moment when you actually hear the whole thing come together. So I can actually now further admire the work that goes into the group that's behind me based on what you were just telling me right there.
Well, I appreciate that. I think it's like you said, man. I think it's magic when it all comes together, and I'm very fortunate to be one piece of the puzzle there, just getting to do my thing and have it, contribute to this great, final result. So, I love it.
Absolutely. So we're still on Aberdeen here. We got to get this show moving, but quickly, in Aberdeen, you also had what I would assume would be a lifetime experience for you guys. You guys were in the movie Camp Rock 2 at Disney. That had the Jonas Brothers and Demi Lovato as the stars of the movie. I remember watching it as a kid. How in the heck did that transpire that you guys were on a Disney movie?
Well, yeah, I mean, again, it was Adam who made that happen. He was doing some background acting work at the time to pay rent, and well, I mean, not just to pay rent. He had an interest in the on-screen part of show business as well, and he was doing some of that kind of stuff. And there was a casting call for a band for a movie. They didn't say which one, obviously, they never do. And he submitted a photo of us. We were, I think, driving through, I don't know where, Northern Ontario. He sent a photo. That's all we could do. We were on the road. We couldn't do anything. So, and they liked us, so they took us. And so we got sheet music, and wouldn't say what the music movies. Pardon me. Wouldn't say what the movie was, but they sent us the sheet music. So I'm learning this guitar part off the sheet music, and it's called "It's a Brand New Day." And I was like, okay, cool, and whatever. And then I remember him at some point being like, dude, this is a Disney movie. This is going to be huge. This is so sick. Yeah. And I was like, okay, wow, cool. So yeah, we filmed, we were what you call special skills extra, which means you don't have lines. If you have lines in a movie, you're like, that's really good. You're making a lot of money. I think anyways. And if you're an extra, it means you don't have lines. So you're kind of in the background. But because we played instruments, that counts as a special skill. So you get triple scale, I think it was at the time, which was a lot of money for us at the time. That's anyways. Wicked. It was like, wow, I had a couple grand in my bank account by the whole time. the time the whole thing was over, I was like, this is dope. We just do this all the time. And it was the only time we ever ended up doing a movie. We shot, I don't know, it was like a week in Guelph, I think it was, and then a few days. It might have been at Earl Bales Park in Toronto. met the Jonas Brothers, met Demi Lovato very briefly, didn't really chat with them or anything or become friends. We did sort of chat with a couple of the other cast members. And now I'm blanking on the name. It was Jordan, and I can't remember his last name, but he was a really nice guy. And we actually ended up playing a show with him. He did a show as a music artist, and we got to open for him. I wish I could remember his last name. And Jordan Francis.
Okay,
Jordan
yeah,
Francis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So anyway, great guy. But we ended up opening for him. So that's sort of how it went down for us. And it was a really fun experience. It was definitely a unique experience. It didn't have too much effect on the trajectory of my career, I don't think, other than like it's a cool little talking point, and I put it in my teaching bio at Long McQuaid so that students want to take lessons with me.
Promoting you guys, that was my big selling point. I was like, man, these guys have been in Camp Rock too. Like you got to come see these boys.
Yeah. So it was a nice little bio addition, let's say. Yeah.
That's weird. Did you learn anything musically from that experience that you kind of took away from it, or was it kind of like just in such an awe moment that it was kind of over and done with in a blink of an eye?
It's hard to pinpoint anything in particular because we weren't really playing. It was all mimed, right? So
yeah, I guess
more than anything. Yeah, like more than anything, you just had to look good, and like your hands had to be in the right spot on the guitar that it was like reasonably. I mean, they never cared. Like the director, or like there was nobody watching me being like, "Hey, like you weren't playing a D chord there, and that was a D." Like, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter. Like,
yeah.
So I did my best. I'm pretty sure I was on for most of it, but musically, no, I don't think we really learned anything. I'm sure we picked up some stuff just in terms of how to interact with people and how to try to be as professional as possible and trying to just like, soak in the experience. And it is, at the end of the day, it is work. So you want to do a good job, right? So just keeping your head on your shoulders and making sure that you're doing that and not getting in anybody's way and not making it about you. Cause it's not, you're a part of this thing, and it's about making the thing as good as it can be. So, I didn't have I wasn't sitting there with an agenda to like, impress this person or that person or get Joe Jonas's phone number. Like, you know what I mean? That's not what it's about. Like that people will remember you as the guy who was being weird if you're doing stuff like that, I think. And as opposed to like, just show up and do a good job. If there's an opportunity to say hi to somebody or to help somebody with something and you offer to do that, that's great. But, just sort of stay in your lane. At least that's been my approach.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. So in your group, The Agenda now I don't call you guys a musical group. I literally call you guys the full music business. You are a backing band. You guys record, you name it. You guys seem to provide it, which is absolutely incredible and an awesome business model. But and some of the artists that you've worked with, like Beverly Mahood and Genevieve Fisher and David James, which that's where we reconnected through, is when you guys were coming through Thunder Bay. You were on the David James show that I got to open for, which is another small world instance. But when you guys are going into booking these gigs, what goes in behind the scenes on this? So if you are booked on a backing band, do you guys get like your sheet music and then you have, okay, you need to have this done by this amount of time? Is there timelines? And then like what's going on in the touring world when you're actually on the road as well?
So for a live situation, it's usually the artist will send out recordings of the songs. Very rarely are there any charts or sheet music. So it'll just be recordings of the songs or maybe a recording of a live show if they did a tour recently. And you can use that to figure out what, the person in your seat was doing the last time. And, it's just sitting at home, figuring the songs out and maybe charting them out for ourselves individually. And then you get together for hopefully a slew of rehearsals before you go on the road, but sometimes it's just one. With David, I think we had one rehearsal before we left for the first leg, and that's all there was time for. That's all we could put together. So
he was a late addition to the tour, correct?
I don't know, but you could very well be right. I think originally he may have been meant to share Aaron Pritchett's band and just come out for some featured tunes, and it got changed. His label got it so that he would have his own band and have a half-hour slot opening. So so we only had time to do one rehearsal, and that's just the reality of a lot of the live world, especially if it's a one-off gig. Oftentimes artists do not have the budget or the time frame to rehearse for a week before doing a single show, much less a tour, right? So you need to show up to the first rehearsal as though it's, the 50th show on the tour, and like you've got everything down.
Yeah.
And
there's no time to be messing around right now.
No, and the honestly the best feeling is when you play through the song for the first time, the artist, and they're like, "Great, let's go to the next song." It's like,
next song.
Cool. And anything less than that, honestly, to me, I mean, and this is being a little bit hyperbolic, but like to me, it feels like I didn't do my job well enough. Like I should have, unless they're like, "Oh, I didn't send you the right recording. It's actually, it does this in the bridge, or we extend this section live, and here, I'll show you what we do." It's like, oh, okay, well, there's no way I could have known that. Yeah. But like, if they have any real criticisms of my playing or my singing on their track, if I had a good recording of it, that was on me to do it right the first time. So that's basically the approach that we take to that. We want, and I guess I should mention too, there's a whole pile of shows we've done for people where there's been no rehearsal. Run a couple songs in sound check, and it's like, all right, seems good enough. And I'm not saying everything goes 100% perfectly every time. That's just not possible. But you need to be able to pull off a full an entire set of music without really having any major train wreck moments. And really that all just comes from preparation at home, and the fact that the four of us work together so frequently helps, right? Because when you're just used to the way other people play, you can feed off of that a bit more easily. There's we know how to communicate with each other on the fly. We know who to look at when certain sections going on. It's hard to really pinpoint it, but when you work with people all the time, you just sort of have this, you become this organism that just kind of knows what to do.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And do that, but it's a lot of just preparation at home. Yeah.
And then do you guys have like contracts that you guys sign for these, or?
It always depends on the gigs.
Okay.
I did have to sign something for David's tour, since it was, a multi-show thing. Like I had to sort of say, like, I'm not gonna bail on you 1 week into the tour.
Yeah.
Like that would totally screw him over, right? So I have to sign. Not that I ever would, but I can understand why, his label would want me to sign a contract saying that I'm going to do all the shows, and vice versa. That contract says that I'm going to do all the shows for me, which is good because like I need the work, right?
Yeah, that's so job stability for you right there.
Yeah, so they're not going to kick me out halfway through. I'm not going to bail halfway through. That's a reasonable agreement. So sometimes there's stuff like that. Oftentimes it's just, hey, you free this night? Pay is this much. You in? Yeah, great. See you there. Like it's usually just that. And like there'll be there'll be an invoice. Like I'll send an invoice for whatever job I do, because that makes it official. It helps for like tax purposes. But I'm not, I don't have a lawyer that reads over a contract every time I have to. I do work. It's mostly just matter of fact, just handshake deals. Yeah. Yeah.
What would be your biggest show that you would say in your head that stands out the most, being on stage behind somebody, or maybe even being in front of the stage? What would be your number one concert that you'll always remember?
Well, I'll give you two. The number one Aberdeen show that we ever did was we played at Warped Tour in Toronto in 2010, and that was again another Adam thing. I'm sure we got picked up to play on this thing called the Kevin Says stage, which is I think they just sort of handpick some artists that didn't make the other stages or whatever that applied, and they were like, yeah, we think this. They didn't fit this stage, but we think they're pretty cool, so we're gonna put them on this stage. So we got to play that, which was unbelievable. It went by so fast. It was like we had like half an hour. There was literally like a big digital clock on the side of the stage ticking down. It's like, if you go over this, someone's gonna come with a like a a jousting sword and knock you off the stage. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. And then in terms of being a guitarist, one standout one for me was one of the early shows we did with Beverly Mahood. Actually, we were in Edmonton at Rexall Place when that was still a thing, and we opened for Tim McGraw. We were direct support for Tim McGraw, which was pretty unbelievable to be in an arena. I mean, I'm from Toronto, so the ACC, or the Scotiabank Arena is now known, the big hockey arena here where all the big concerts happen. You go to concerts there and you think, what would it be like to be on the stage? Rexall is probably about the same size. I don't know exactly, or was. And so to be on that stage and hear, you play your guitar and you hear it bounce off the far wall and come back to you like 2 seconds later, and you're like, wow, yeah, this is really something. And then, getting to watch Tim's band from side stage, although they were all direct, they had no amps or anything, so you couldn't really hear a whole lot from side stage, but just watching and getting to see it up close and just getting to perform to an audience of that size was really, really unforgettable. So those are the two.
Did you use that as a learning moment too? Like, were you picking at the guitarists and whatnot, trying to like pick their brains if you could?
I mean, you couldn't see. That thing is you just, or I'm sorry, well, you couldn't see, even being side stage, you couldn't really see, and you couldn't hear. I mean, the one thing I took away from that was that, okay, this is one of the biggest bands in country and they're not using amps. There's something that means that this is okay to do. So this is probably going to be the future of, guitar playing in a live setting. So something I filed away, and nowadays I don't use amps at all for anything ever, much to the chagrin of Will and other guitarists around me.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah.
So here we go. So the Music Guy podcast that you guys came out with, you guys are on your 68th episode now?
Yeah, I guess we are. It's we're in a bit of a weird transitional period here. Not that anything's changing, but just that Mike, he flew to do a cruise ship gig, so he's actually in Europe right now.
Oh wow!
Waiting to embark on this cruise as a musician, which is amazing because you can quarantine. Once you're on the ship, and he can actually work playing music for like 4 months straight. Which is unbelievable in the times that we're currently living in. So it's amazing for him. The problem is that he's in Europe and we're on 2 different time zones, and he's been prepping for this and flying away for it. So we are going to be recording another episode this weekend, but we've kind of been, I think it's been a couple of weeks since we've made one, unfortunately. But that's we started it as roommates. He and I moved in together. Just as roommates in Markham. I guess it would have been a couple of years ago now. And I had just been really thinking about making a podcast. Obviously I talk way too much. So I was like, maybe this is something I could do. I listened to a lot of them. I thought, there's not like, we got a lot of cool friends. We've had some cool experiences. I got a lot of opinions on things that people probably don't care about, but I'm going to say them anyways. It's like, this would be cool. Like, and I knew that I needed somebody to do it with, who also was super fired up about it and who would keep me to a schedule and that we could push each other and grow together as broadcasters. So I asked Mike, and it seemed like a good idea at the time. We both lived together, and so we'd always be around to do it. And so now we've been doing it for a couple of years, and maybe not quite 2 years, but it's been fun. It's been really great. Every time we record an episode. Yeah. Every time we record an episode, it's just, I'm all smiles after. It's so fun to do. So for people that don't know, the podcast is called Music Guy Podcast. MusicGuyPodcast.com is where you can find all the episodes and everything you would want to know about it. And it's just a podcast. What I say is it's a podcast about a couple guys making a living at music. So it serves to sort of highlight the murky middle of the music industry. I think a lot of people think you're either famous or you're broke, and it's like, no, like some of us are making a living at this, and we really love our jobs and what we get to do, and we find it really interesting, and we would like to share that with people, and also bring guests on who can share with our listeners and with us how to do this better and and have a more engaging successful career in the music industry. So it's based around that, and it's a whole lot of fun. So if anybody's interested in yet another podcast to listen to in addition to Tim's here,
And I implore
come
you
on
all
over.
right now to go follow this podcast, because you do learn a boatload. If you are an artist, you will learn a crapload that will actually help you in your own career if you actually imply what they actually teach you guys. With so like the very first ones that you guys went into the concept of like your own studio stuff. You guys have your live Q&As. You will sit down and you will critique and do YouTube videos showing people how to use Pro Tools and all that kind of stuff, which again, looking at it for me, it's all written in Sanskrit. So the concept that you guys could pull that kind of stuff off and engage your guys in a way more in depth than I think I ever possibly could. So I thank
Yeah.
you for putting that on
Thanks,
for me,
man.
because again, like I've told you before, you are actually an unknown mentor of mine, because Music Guys Podcast is now my radio station.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it, Tim.
It's no
Yeah.
longer Weird Al, and it's no longer Howard Stern. It's now Music Guys. But okay,
Nice.
so we have the agenda, and we had Aberdeen, and we had Music Guys Podcast. But my man, you were also a solo artist on top of that, and you released a new single in Friday called "I'm Not Lost." Can you talk a little bit about the story behind it and the process that you had with songwriting on that song?
Yeah. So the song's out on Spotify. I'm Not Lost. Wrote it a couple of years ago now at this point. I mean, all you artists out there know that it takes, you write the song and then 3 years later it finally comes out because it
Yeah.
takes forever to record stuff and all the rest of it. But yeah, I sat down with my friend Tom Hanley, who was a producer on my EP, so Tom Hanley and I sat down. We were aiming to write songs for this particular record. I had a guitar riff idea, and I think I had the melody, the main sort of backup vocal melody actually in the chorus. Oh, I had this kind of idea, and there was a guitar that went along with it, and yeah, we just kind of built it honestly from the ground up from there. I've never been a good lyric guy, so Tom really helped me with the lyrics. And we figured it out. It was just kind of the two of us chipping away, and it came together, I think, within a few hours, over the course of an afternoon, just sitting and chipping away at it. And what you thought you had turns into something you didn't even realize, it was going to be. And it's even better than you thought. When you get, when the agenda guys, when they get their hands on this music, it's like anything that didn't make sense before, now it does, and stuff that I mean, as an artist, obviously I've got certain ideas in my head of how things are going to go. So I have to let go of that sometimes and let them do their thing, because at the end of the day, that's what makes it really special, is that collaboration between the four of us and Tom as a producer. And so, yeah, that's how it came together. We recorded it at, a studio, I think it's called Judson Studios, or it might have a different name now, but it's on Judson Street in Etobicoke, and it's run by and engineered by Nick Boyd, who played in the band Hollerado. For those of you who know Canadian indie music, they were quite a successful band.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to know Nick through that whole process. He's an amazing engineer, really, really great guy. And we did a handful of songs there, and I'm Not Lost was one of them. And we did it, on a respectable budget and with some really great musicians. I mixed it myself. Ruben Ghosh from Mojito Mastering did the mastering on the whole record, and I think it turned out great. And yeah, it's out right now, so you guys can go check it out if you want.
Absolutely. Yeah. And please do. It is an amazing track, Al. Has COVID so you obviously had your music going, you had the agenda going, you had backing tracks, and then COVID hit. Obviously that slowed you down. How have you been able to adapt now from COVID to kind of keep it up? I would consider you a professional musician. You make money through music, and that helps you pay your bills. So how have you been able to kind of adapt your professional music career with everything going on? You've been doing things on Twitch that I've noticed with Music Mondays and Thirsty Thursdays. Is there anything else that we're also missing that you could maybe maybe give some advice to a couple of musicians who have kind of hit that wall and don't really know where else to turn?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I'll start by saying that the CERB, which is the government support that we got as soon as the pandemic shut everything down, was a complete lifesaver for me, and I'm sure it was for a lot of other people.
Mm-hmm.
Without that, I would not still be financially sound as I am now, and so I'm very, very grateful to live in Canada and to have been, able to benefit from that I don't know if you call it generosity, but I know other places have not fared as well as we have.
Mm-hmm.
So our government felt like they had our backs for that, and I want to always want to say that I'm very thankful for that, and I don't want to take credit for just I just pulled up my bootstraps and figured it out. It's like, no, like I had a lot of help, especially early on when it was like, cool, I can't work at all, except the landlord still wants their money. So what am I going to do? It's like, no, it's okay. There's this benefit in place. I always also, I got some help from the Unison Benevolent Fund, I believe is the proper name for it. And that's a fund that helps people in the arts world, and they were gracious enough to help me. So big thanks to them. I applied for a couple of other grants and loans that I did not end up getting, which is totally okay because lots of other people did. And so that was a huge part of it, and that gave me the cushion, the opportunity to take a look at my career and think about how I could make this work. And I looked at the pandemic as like a multi-year thing, almost right from the get-go. Once it was announced that everything was locked down, I was like, this is really bad. I was one of the people who didn't think it was going to be that bad. Right off the get-go, I was like, whatever, this is just going to be like the flu, like just wash your hands, it'll be fine, and like don't get too worked up about it. And when it really hit, and my fiance Katie's a nurse and she works at St. Mike's Hospital, and she's been just busting it this whole time, and now more than ever, without getting too sidetracked here, like everybody was all, thank you frontline workers at the beginning of the pandemic, which is amazing, but it is worse now than it's ever been in terms of the virus harming people and what the nurses are going through right now. So I just want to give a big shout out to the nurses.
Yes,
that are going through this. So, once I saw how bad this really was, I was like, this is not going away anytime soon. Vaccines in development, that's amazing. It's being administered now, that's amazing. I still don't think we're going to be out of this for another year or so, just because of how complicated everything is. So it was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Like, I'm not just going to sit here and play PS4 all day. That gets old. That gets old after like a couple days.
First week is all right, but now we got to get off the couch.
Yeah, so I got to do something. I mean, fortunately, I already had the podcast, so I was like, okay, well, we can lean into this. And then I started looking into moving my students online, and I was able to do that pretty much in full. So I have a pretty good roster of online students. If anybody out there is interested in lessons with me, I'll do a quick little plug on that.
Never.
I teach production, vocal coaching, guitar, piano, like just whatever, career consulting if you want that too. And you can reach out to me on social media, or my email's alrowemusic@gmail.com if you want to chat about that. I just do stuff over Zoom, Skype, what have you. And it's been working out really well, actually. So doing that, I think a lot of musicians have gone that direction. That's not unique. But it is something that's, again, been a big part of me staying afloat. But yeah, another thing was Twitch. It was something I'd experimented with a little bit before the pandemic. And I decided, like, I really enjoyed it. Twitch is a website where you can, live stream anything from video games to cooking to music to what have you. And so I just started busting my guitar out, turning Twitch on, and playing songs to whoever was listening. And it's been growing at a very, very slow rate. It's really hard to break through in social media, as I'm sure most people know. And Twitch is a very, very popular site, and there's a ton of people on it. So I don't have high expectations to become an internet celebrity anytime soon, but it's been growing slowly. I've had some really great support from some really great viewers. I've met some new people who are interested in my music. I've met some new people whose music I'm interested in. So there's a really cool community going on over there in terms of the music scene. And if you would like to support artists, it's one of the best ways, because if you make a donation through that, it goes straight to them. I'm sure there's a commission that's taken off, obviously, but it is a really big way to support artists directly and engage with artists directly. I think it's a really great platform, and it's been really good for me to, like you said, I'm doing Music Mondays. That's at noon Eastern time. The site is twitch.tv/alrowemusic. And Thursday nights, I do Thirsty Thursdays. It's not, I just call it that. It's all the same thing. I just play music. And you can pop on by and check that out. And it's been really good for me to do a couple of gigs a week, quote unquote. It's been really good for my singing voice. It's been really good for my guitar playing, to just keep myself in shape more than anything. But yeah, it's been fun, and I've been able to reach out to some new people. So if anybody's interested in stopping by the stream and giving me a follow and saying something in the chat, that it's always much appreciated and makes me feel real good. So that's one thing I've been doing. The podcast is another, and then probably the biggest thing that I'm so fortunate to have again is the agenda. It's been a great downtime for artists who have been wanting to make a record but didn't have time because they were on the road or were working or what have you, to sit there and be like, well, now I have the time, like, let's do this. And they've been reaching out to us, which we're very grateful for. So during the pandemic, we're still in, but early in the pandemic, we were sort of offering some discounts to certain people, just because we knew it was tough to make ends meet. Right now, we're pretty much back to what our normal rate would be, which I still feel is very competitive for what we're offering. We're 4 guys. Like, you don't have to hire any musicians if you don't want to, because we're going to cover the whole band, unless you want, fiddle or pedal steel or something very specific. Like, you're not going to need to hire anybody else. You don't need to hire a mixing engineer. You don't need to hire an external producer. It's all in one place. I think our rates are quite competitive, and we want to keep them that way because we want to work as much as we possibly can. We don't want to sit here and with our, our thumbs up our noses, being like, well, we're not gonna
good analogy. Good analogy.
We'll figure it out. Like, we want to work as much as possible. We want to make great music with people. So if anybody's interested in making some music with us, we would love to chat. Again, you can reach out to me at the same email address, ourmusic@gmail.com. And that's, we've done records with Graham Scott Fleming, Alessia Cole, Dylan Wallace over the pandemic. I'm sure there's more. We did a Christmas record with Beverly Mahood late last year. So
yes, I remember
there's been some good work happening there that's also helped me a lot. So those are sort of the main ways. And as much as I can't wait to play live again, it's like, I'm not counting on it happening anytime soon. So I'm trying to find more ways. The last thing I'll share is a website called soundbetter.com, I think. Soundbetter.com. If anybody out there, if you're an instrumentalist or a vocalist or an engineer, and you know how to record yourself playing as an instrumentalist, like if you can record yourself well, or a vocalist, if you can record yourself well, or as an engineer, like if you know how to, mix a song on Pro Tools or what have you, you can sign up for this website. I'm not affiliated with it in any way other than I'm a member, and I've gotten some decent work on there. So that's another good way. There's people out there that are making tracks, and they need a guitarist to play the solo on their tune, and they'll hire you to do that. For me, I'm getting most of my work is mixing songs for people, and I love doing that. So I've been very happy to and grateful to get that work. So I think if you put yourself out there and try to get onto some of these channels that aren't just the old school playing in a bar, hopes and dreams, getting signed, going on tour. I mean, that stuff isn't really happening right now. I'm not saying it never will, but it's like we can't wait forever for that. You got to look for other ways to make it happen. So that's what's been working for me.
Right on. Well, obviously it seems to be working very, very well for you, Al. Every single day, again, one of the other guys that I always see, you always have something going on in your life, whether it be your own music or the podcast or the agenda. Everything always seems to be going well for you, sir. Unfortunately, we've run out of time today. Every single chance I get to talk with you, we're always running over the limit. So I'll have to have you back on this podcast as soon as possible. Last thing that I need for a piece of advice: if you were to sit down in front of 10-year-old Al Rowe right now, what piece of advice would you give him?
10-year-old.
Yeah, like this is the kid that's getting ready to figure out what he wants to do with the rest of his life.
Wow. I mean, if we're talking career advice, I would say always say yes. If it's something that relates to your career, or even if it doesn't really, if you get an opportunity to do something, I always say, you should take it, especially early in your career. And even if you don't feel qualified, because if somebody's asking you to do it, it's because they think you can, and therefore
somebody out there thinks you're qualified.
Throw yourself in the fire, and you'll figure it out. So that's the way that I've sort of done it. I've just tried not to say no as much as possible. Sometimes things come up and you have to, but that would be like the overarching piece of advice, I guess. To 10-year-old Al Rowe, I mean, it's just like enjoy the every day, man. I mean, that sounds so lame, but like enjoy every day. Try not to, I think I do this better now that I'm a little bit older than I did when I was in my 20s, but try not to compare yourself to other people. Try not to compare yourself to some timeline that you think you're supposed to be following, or some trajectory that you're supposed to be following. Nobody knows. We don't know what's going to happen to us tomorrow. Like, we think we do. And usually, a lot of the times we're right, but like a lot of times we're wrong too. Like, I wouldn't have pictured that I was going to be in this spot. I didn't manifest this. I didn't write this in my diary. You know what I mean? I just kept saying yes to stuff. And if it's things that I enjoy, I'm going to keep doing them. If I don't enjoy it, I'm not going to do it anymore. It's kind of like, it sounds so simple and maybe a little bit like, I don't know. I don't know what the word is, but you know what I mean? It's like, just, if it feels good, do it, right? Like, to an extent. But, and then, I mean, the only other thing I'll say, to anybody who's going to make a big investment in something like post-secondary school, or if you're going to become an artist, I think it's very, very important that you are in charge of your finances. Like, you're in control. Like, you're not going into $40K debt to go to school. You're not just saying, oh, whatever, I'll figure it out later, or I'm going to make it big and then I'll make it all back. Or like, I would say never do that.
If I had a dime for every time I said that.
Yeah, like get a part-time job while you're going to school to ease the amount of debt you're getting into. Get a part-time teaching job. If you're playing gigs at night, like, what are you doing during the day? Like, do something to try to offset that, because this is a tough career and it's really difficult financially because there's not a lot of stability. So you need to be even more on top of that than somebody who's got a steady job, just, and by on top of it, I just mean like have a couple $1,000 saved up so that if you don't get a gig for a couple of weeks, you're okay. You know what I mean?
Like, with a budget
trying to get ahead of
accordingly
stuff
to the profession. Yeah. No,
so
that makes
those would be I guess those would be the main things. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Al, for coming on again. This is another podcast I'll have to listen to again and again because there is so much knowledge in such a little bit of time that I need to soak up. And again, I didn't even get to some of the conversation that we were going to discuss. So I'll have to have you back on this show eventually. For people who are listening that are new fans of Al Rowe music, where can they find you on the socials, my man?
Yeah, it's like I said, my direct contact if you want to reach out, say hey, ask a question, anything like that is alromusic@gmail.com. My Instagram is at alromusic, and it's the same handle for everywhere else: Facebook, Twitch, Twitter. And yeah, I would really encourage people to stop by the stream on Twitch if you feel like you want to chat or just hear some tunes. It's a pretty cool place. And I guess the official website is alromusic.com if you want to check that out as well. But thanks, Tim, for having me, man. I had a great time. I really enjoy talking. So here we are with me doing that.
Man,
and
I am
congrats
just
on
a
watching
funnel of
the show on your end.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
man. Like I said, I'm a funnel of knowledge, and from day one that we first met, I knew that this was going to be one of those people that I would really want to talk to, because ever since we started talking, I figured like you and your group knew the ins and outs better than anybody that I had talked to at that moment. So thank you so much, Al, for coming on to the show, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks, Tim. All the best. Talk to you soon.